Hey, welcome to another episode of the Powerhouse Man show, where I'm bringing men from all around the world who are successful in their life, who have mastered parts of their life or all of their life. That way we can learn from them. We can really figure out what makes a man successful in this world. My good friend, Marc Mawhinney, I've known him for a long time, actually. Now, I've seen you at maybe some of your low points in life, and I've definitely seen you at your high points in life. And I've always had tremendous amounts of respect for you as an entrepreneur, as an individual, and just a guy that tends to take things, not take himself too seriously. I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you. Guys, I'm going to introduce you to Marc in just a sec. I do want to just let you know that, I invite you to subscribe, to hit the bell notification. I've got a ton of great guests lined up, and it's going to be a really impactful a series for you to plug into. Let me give you a quick little bio of Marc. Marc is a lifelong entrepreneur who helps coaches get more clients, specifically without paid advertising. I know I've taken a few of his courses, his emailing course, his about daily emails, as well as his podcasting course. And Marc has always been, shared great information with me. And what this guy says works. So if you're a coach, or if you're thinking about getting into coaching or working in that space, he's definitely the guy to help you build your business. He achieves this with his coaching programs. He's got a very popular podcast. I think you started in 2014. I think you're over 700 or 800 episodes now, where you've highlighted coaches from all around the world. You've got a Facebook group called the Coaching Jungle, plus an exclusive print newsletter called the Secret Coach Club. I know that you've spoken at many big seminars, the Social Media Marketing World, Entrepreneur City Live, the TP3X conference. And I know that you've been all over magazines, entrepreneur.com. You constantly contribute to large media and very credible magazines and media sources. I appreciate you taking some time and spending some time here with us. How's it going, man?
It's going good. You and I met, the saying, the dirty 30s. My 20s were smooth. It was nonstop success. I'm like, geez, this success thing's easy. Then I hit my 30s and life went to shit. So when I met you and I met, I was a bankrupt, divorced. You probably thought, holy shit, like my life isn't too bad compared to this guy. I was going to make up a story that you saved me. I was about to jump off a bridge, and at the last moment, a hand grabbed me and saved me. And here we are today. I had nowhere to go but up. So things are going well now. And it's all good.
Yeah, well, it's true, because I remember first meeting you. I didn't know who you were. Like, I didn't know any of your background. And I remember, I think we were out at like some restaurants or something like that, and we were hanging out a lot, and a lot of people were looking at us because you were well known in the city, but I didn't realize that you were well known in the city, but not necessarily for.
I was public enemy number one, so I think what happened. Yeah. I think we were at the St. John Ale House. So I don't remember. It was one of those ones. Yeah. And you didn't know the whole story of my business closure and everything else. I had the friggin' local media running me down. I was worse than Hitler, right? Heaven forbid a business close. And we went into the restaurant, and I think you said to me, you're like, getting kind of a weird vibe here. What's going on? And all of a sudden you saw like a red dot shining around my, chest.
I'm like, oh my God, get down.
But I give you credit. I'm like, geez, if he's hanging out with me after hearing this guy's worse than Hitler and Stalin put together, right? He's, but I'm, same way. I try to judge people based on my own interactions with them. So one thing I hate with the coaching world, I don't know if you get this, it happens not often, but about once a month, someone will message me that I know, and they'll be like, Marc, I noticed you had so-and-so, Joe Smith, not his real name, Joe Smith on your podcast. And, oh, you should hear what happened with a bad experience or whatever, or Mary Jones. And it's almost like tattletaling for school and stuff. I always say the same thing. I've had no issues whatsoever with Joe or Mary or whatever. I make my own judgments. Can we be adults here and operate that way? So
well, the thing is, I think with like, because I've had people come up to me, not like anytime recently, but this is when we were to hand. They're like, oh, do you know Marc? And again, try to tattletale on you to me. And what I genuinely always said is, I was like, look, Marc has been successful. He's going to do it again. Because one thing that you got to understand is that once somebody has a certain mindset, yes, they may like no matter how positive or how much knowledge you have, life is always going to present hard times and challenges. And I've said to people, I said, look, I know Mark, he's been successful before. It's only a matter of time before he's successful again. And I guarantee you he's going to be even stronger and better, because once someone is developing their mindset in such a way, it doesn't matter what happens, they will eventually become successful again. And so, I told people that a long time ago. I said, look, you can say whatever you want, but guys like Mark always come back, and they always come back stronger. I'm not joking on my own bullshit. And by the way, I expect a PayPal contribution after this.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just for our neck of the woods. We're in Atlantic, Canada, which isn't the most entrepreneur-friendly place. Not exactly, some bigger centers. But I've always looked, like when I see a business owner that's in the paper, or media somewhere. No one reads the paper anymore. But a business closing, and they're shitting on them and stuff. And I tend to root for the underdog, but I know there's more to the story. Nobody starts a business thinking, hey, it'd be fun to go through a business closure. Let's just do this. We need experience, right? Entrepreneurs, business owners put everything into a business, their heart, soul, money, a lot of time and energy. I have a lot more respect for that person than someone who's on the sidelines, just like the old man in the arena quote with Teddy Roosevelt, that's just throwing stones or whatever. But these people have never taken a chance or taken any risk in their life, and they're miserable, but it's easy to kick at someone when they're down. So you have to kind of put the blinders on and keep going. And it obviously bugs you. You're human. Now, by the way, I'm not perfect. If I could go back in time, I would change a lot of things that I did. So I'm not trying to say that, oh, woe is me, I'm a victim, or whatever. Like, I made mistakes, obviously. But I was talking to someone who's in California, like in the tech sector. And this person said to me that they wouldn't invest in someone unless they failed once or twice, because it means they weren't, going out there taking risks and stuff like that. And I think we need to have more of that attitude when it comes to entrepreneurship and failure and stuff like that.
Yeah. And actually, it's like a perfect segue in this idea of risk. Because as men, whether you're an entrepreneur or a student, or you're climbing, you want to advance in your career, make more money, get a better relationship, all this kind of stuff, there's always an element of risk, whether it's physical risk or emotional risk. And I find that in the entrepreneurial space, a lot of men, and just overall men right now, almost don't want to take any emotional risk. Like, they're afraid to get beat up a bit, whether it's, I'm not saying go out in the street and fight some guy just to prove your manhood, but it's almost like, we live in a world of cancel culture. This guy said this, I disagree with it, so there's a lot of this kind of political correctness I find is stifling men's ability, or, they're second guessing themselves. One thing I always respected about you is that you got blasted in the media hardcore, but you were always someone that said what you meant and meant what you said. You were never afraid. Even after that, as I started following your journey as you built your coaching business, and you would just be like, this is my style, like it, don't like it, and that's it. And I always admired that, but always felt for myself it was difficult to do that. I had this idea that, well, everybody needs to like me. If I want to be successful, then people have to like you, and you can't be pissing people off. Recently, I got involved in politics, and the media then blasted me and all that stuff. And I'm actually grateful for it, because I recognize how much strength it's given me, and how much it really doesn't matter what people think, but it really matters your mindset, and that you're connecting with the right people. And, half the world can hate you. Look at someone like Donald Trump, right? Half the country. Oh, well, that's what mainstream media says. I don't know if it's true, but let's say a lot of people, we definitely know a lot of people don't like Donald Trump as an example, but I admire someone like him, not because I'm not talking about his politics per se, but I'm talking about the fact that he can get up. I can say the same thing about a Barack Obama, right? Who, I definitely don't like his politics, but in the sense of, like, I respect the fact that, half the country hates you, but you get up every day, you do your thing. And it seems like, there's a certain amount of strength that no matter what it seems to be admirable. How did you deal with getting blasted in the media, facing criticism. I know you've had people like directly, confront you about some of the decisions you've made in your business or life. How do you deal with continuously putting yourself out there? And quite honestly, some people don't like you and are pissed off at you. How is it that you still continue to do what you do? From my perspective, seeming very easily, almost like it just rolls right off your back.
Well, about Trump, quickly, he wouldn't have been elected president if he was very bland, milquetoast, try to please everyone. The whole reason he won in 2016, some people would say 2020 as well, but 2016 he won, was because they wanted a fighter. People were pissed off after 8 years with Obama, and they wanted someone to get in there maybe and shake things up and drain the swamp, so to speak. So, look at Jeb Bush. I thought Jeb Bush would just stroll to the nomination, right? He's got the Bush name, and he didn't have those rough edges like Trump or whatever, and he got squashed, despite all the money and everything he had behind him. So a lot of people think that, they have to hate someone like Trump, but they don't realize they can learn lessons from it. And then the flip side of it, Republicans or conservative people think, I couldn't possibly learn anything from Obama's, rise or whatever. Like, I don't care who you are. If you make it to the highest office in the world, which is president of the United States, you're not an idiot. You can't be,
That's right.
You have to have something in there, right? Regardless of what your politics are, you have to look at it and admire some things about it. For me, it gets easier. I mean, I was shell shocked when everything happened. We're talking 2009, in around there. So it's been 12 years, 13 years. But I'm grateful in a way for the experience, because it did give me a harder skin, a thicker skin, right? So if some stranger who lives 1,000 miles away on the internet's a keyboard warrior, eating Cheetos in his mom's basement and jerking off or whatever, and then typing stuff on a keyboard about me, it doesn't really have that same, I'm like, okay, well, that's their choice or whatever. So I think that you have to, I'm not saying you go out there and be an idiot. There's some people try to stir up controversy the wrong way, and it just doesn't work for them. If you believe in what you're saying, I always say you want to stay away from the mushy middle. You want to put out those strong beliefs, which are going to get some people hating you, but then you're going to get defended by your raving fans, and the people who hate you probably weren't going to buy from you anyways. But people are too touchy nowadays. You talk about cancel culture. I'm in the coaching world, which I see this a lot, and I said crap once in an email. I don't think crap's a really bad word. I'm not like dropping a bunch of F-bombs and stuff in emails or whatever. She's like, Mark, I really like your stuff, but you said a naughty word last email. It's not in the same vibrational plane as mine. So if you could, clean it up a little, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks, or whatever. I'm like, okay,
Do you respond to that type of stuff, or do you just ignore it and move on? Like, do you entertain? I'm curious about how you handle criticism, like, and for the guys, watching, listening, like, do they, I think that sometimes there's a feeling like I need to answer criticism. I know when I first started getting involved in, both politics as well as what I do here in the coaching space, working with men, some men are open-minded to the idea of semen retention or giving up masturbating, and are open-minded to the idea of channeling their sexual energy. Something that I learned from Napoleon Hill, actually was the first person who ever introduced me to the concept in Think and Grow Rich. This idea of sex transmutation. And that's what I help men with mainly. And some people, like, they discredit it. They call me names. They say I'm weird because I do it. At the beginning, I felt this real need to answer everybody back, almost to stick up or defend myself. What about yourself? Do you feel like you should address those things, or do you just move on and ignore it?
What's that old saying? 80% of guys masturbate, and the other 20% lie about it and say they don't. I should have come on in not November. That could have been a good chat. I'm just joking. I mean, to answer your question, you have to be careful. I'm selective with how I answer, who I answer, and what, because you could get into a pissing match with someone who's a lot more time and less IQ than you. With that one in particular that I mentioned, I actually knew her previously, and I don't think she's a bad person. I did answer her. I just said, hey, look, I write like I talk. If you're not cool with that, feel free to unsubscribe. No hard feelings. Usually what I like doing, rather than feeding them, throwing gasoline on the fire and getting into a back and forth, I take the hate that's thrown at me or whatever, I turn it into content to share with my audience, and then it's content fodder. So I might send an email out and say, yesterday I got an email from Joe Blow, who said I'm a piece of crap, and he hates my beard. I look like an idiot. I'm just throwing that. I haven't got that one yet. But then I would say,
I'm going to send you an email right after. By the way, dude, your beard is not as nice as mine.
Yeah, exactly. But what I do is then I turn it into something like an email or a post or whatever, say, hey, I got this criticism from someone yesterday, and then I turn it into a learning lesson or something else that will usually lead into a sale or some sort of call to action. One of the best examples I saw of someone turning around trolls and basically taking those attacks and turning it into money. Ben Settle is excellent at it. He wrote a whole book called Copy Troll, which I have back there. But Ben was when he's on Twitter, he and his now his wife, I believe, Stefania, were getting attacked by a washed up hip hop artist. It used to be big. I was going to make a joke about washed up hip hop artists.
You're like, you talking about me, man? It's true.
I didn't like what you said.
No.
I didn't like what you said about to Ben on Twitter. That no, I'm just joking. Actually, your music video is great. When I first heard years ago, you're like, I used to, be a hip hop artist and all this stuff. And I thought, and I had a video, and I thought it'd be like a camcorder and like this homemade type thing, and it was like real legit, it was like
over a $20,000 music video.
Yeah, and then I see things on YouTube. Yeah, there's these like 13-year-old girls want you to come to their birthday party.
Oh my goodness! And, it's funny because I was just talking about, I just finished watching the Epstein documentary. Anyways, let's not get into that conversation.
Whole story. But I'm like, geez, this guy's a big deal. I thought he was just full of crap, and full of shit. So what Ben Settle did was he was getting attacked by this wash up hip hop artist who was sending all his fans or whatever after Ben and Stefania. They're calling them white supremacists. Stefania, I believe, is Hispanic, so it's kind of weird for her to be a white supremacist there, and Ben's not like that either. But what I thought Ben did really well was he took all that hate and attack coming at it, he turned it into a sale. He called it the right supremacist sale, because he's big on email writing. So WRITE, right supremacist sale. And he has sale that weekend on one of his programs or whatever, its offerings. And he ended up making $30,000 when people used the promo code of the washed up hip hop artist. They got a discount. So he sold a bunch of stuff, and he's like, this is great. It's like printing money, which is really smart with it. So you have to look at it. If you're, it's easy to not get attacked. If you want to hide behind the scenes, you don't put your message out there, you want to be very blah, very milquetoast or whatever, you're bland. Okay, yeah, you're not going to get attacked. But if you want to have any level of success, you're going to have to get ready to get some arrows shot your way.
I think there's a level of maybe I'm going to use the word groundedness that it takes. So one of the things, that I learned in politics, so I ran in my first election, as you know, just several months ago. Right. And, I got attacked hard, which is the name of the game. I knew it would happen. I didn't expect that level of attack, but I think that was reflective of the campaign I ran, like that, people were paying attention to what I was saying, and that scared some of the opposition. But one thing that I definitely would say that I can improve on next time was staying grounded or not getting so emotional. I think that there's a tendency when someone attacks you to attack back, to defend yourself.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing from you is that the real lesson that I'm taking away is that, don't stay above it, use it. Lao Tzu says, use everything as if it was meant for you. Right. It's like use these type of things into your advantage. How do you keep yourself, let's say, grounded, or I don't want to say maybe unemotional, but unattached to this type of scenario, so that you can stay intelligent rather than, letting your emotions fire off and maybe run the show?
I have no feelings.
You're like, I'm actually not human.
My fiance calls me like the Tin Man or whatever, because I'm like, I haven't cried since 1993. My grandfather died, until this interview when you were complimenting me. I had a couple tears. so she always jokes around. Although surprisingly, I shouldn't even admit this. The only times I got a little bit emotional, we were watching The Notebook, and I was feeling a little at the end of it. I know it sounds weird. I'm just like, it wasn't like I'm like like that. But I'm like, oh geez, this is kind of sad, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
I was laying on her lap, and there's like a little tiny puddle, like, you know, by there, and I'm just like, oh, you know, my nose is running a little. Don't mind me or whatever. But it's, you know, the water.
Do you ever cry during movies?
No, that I just felt emotional during The Notebook. I was like, that's sad. And then this is no spoiler alert needed because it's been years since the movie, a couple years since the movie came out. But when Tony Stark died in Avengers Endgame, I was like, oh man, because I love Iron Man. Well, I love all those. This is my Stan Lee little bobblehead, right, from Marvel.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
So I love the Marvel movies. I've watched all of them many times with my son and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh man, Iron Man died. Now I wasn't like crying in the theater. I was like, I'm running out the door or whatever. And I was like, this is kind of sad, you know. So
I've actually cried during movies, and I used to like be embarrassed at it. Like I used to be like, oh man, like, you know, like a guy shouldn't cry, a guy shouldn't show emotion, that type of thing.
Yeah.
What do you think about like that, like guys showing emotion, like in your own experience?
Well, a true story. I don't know if you remember this. When we first met, you didn't know my sense of humor and stuff like that. So we were driving. We were up near Rockwood Park. I remember you're on the passenger side, and you're like, "So, what's your deal? Like, are you married or whatever?" And of course, I was going through the divorce at the time, and I said, "No." I said, "My wife and I are divorced or whatever." And then I kind of turned to the side and I pretend cry. Like that, and it just got really quiet in the car, and you're like, oh my god, man, I'm so sorry. That I'm like, I'm just shit. Yeah, I'm okay. And you're probably like, this guy's freaking nuts, right?
But I think that's why I liked you, man. I was like, this guy is nuts, and that's cool, man. I like
anything for a cheap laugh, you know. Hey, my life's going to shit, but if I can get a few laughs out of it, I'm cool with that. So I don't know. I'm kind of weird because I don't show my emotions, you know, as like some guys do, like with crying and stuff like that. That being said, I don't think it's necessarily a weakness. It's probably unless it's going to the extreme, like if you cry every day in your emotional basket case, it's gonna be tough.
Then
to,
you're
you
like
know,
depressed or something. That's more of a problem than
something going on. Like I don't want people to like start aiming for that. You know, lay in bed with a bottle of Jack Daniels and a gun and stuff. The curtains closed, crying every day. That's a positive thing or whatever. But yeah, I do think it goes overboard nowadays. That probably comes from the culture or whatever, where there probably is an attack on masculinity. I think it's seen as a bad thing.
For sure.
I'm you know, you're a little younger than me. I'm a middle-aged white dude, so I'm pretty much the bottom of the rung rate, you know, the ladder. Like
you're like the absolute enemy, you know.
You're evil,
to
like
modern culture.
Yeah. So, but there is it's frowned upon, right? Like if you look at sitcoms and stuff, how many of them are based around the oaf husband, the idiot, or whatever? And a lot of it is girl power. And I'm not trying to say that I'm against, you know, like female empowerment. Hey, that's cool. But I think that it's gone a little too far the other way, where boys are being discouraged from doing certain things, you know, like natural boy things. You know, boys have, you know, a lot of energy. I don't think there's a bad playing cops and robbers isn't a bad thing. That Gillette ad really got on my, you know, it was really ticked me off a few years ago, where Gillette put the ad out basically saying all men are rapists or, you know, destined to be rapists. And, you know, I don't know if you saw that one.
No, I didn't see that. Jeez.
Oh, wow. That was a big kerfuffle. I stopped buying Gillette stuff and their parent company things. Except my son likes Pringles. Their company does Pringles, so I have to buy him Pringles. But I stopped. I started using different razors or whatever. Yeah, that ad was, you know, like just very. Oh God, I can't even do it justice or injustice talking about here. So just go watch it. But it was almost like. You know, imagine if it were vice versa with saying that all women accuse men of rape or false claims of rape or whatever, and generalizing all women and putting them into that. So it was pretty disgusting. But anyways, I'm off on a tangent here. Don't mind me.
No worries. But I do want to, yeah, I do want to bring up that conversation though of like what I consider to be an over feminization now. There's one thing about women's empowerment and women having equal rights and being able to, if they do the same job that a man does, getting paid. I think for me personally, it's very difficult to argue if it doesn't matter who you are, if you get a result, then you should be compensated for that result to what everybody else is being compensated. So I don't think anybody can really like argue that. But this idea that men and women are the exact same, that we can do all the same things, I personally think it's foolish, and I actually think it's detrimental to our society, because the reality is that a man's biology and psychology it's much different than a woman's biology and psychology. And to over feminize the men, I think it's one of the reasons why so many men are suffering depression, suicide rates, vices have taken over men's lives. Men are killing themselves. Suicide rates are way higher in men than women. Depression in men are way higher than women. And I think that this over feminization has been very detrimental to our society. And I'm concerned for the younger generations growing up in this kind of philosophy that, that it's bad to be a man and that masculinity is somehow has caused the world's problems.
Yeah. Well, nowadays, especially with social media, but everything's so black and white. So, for example, if you said to somebody, equal pay, equal work, equal pay, I think most people are like, yeah, that makes sense or whatever. It doesn't factor in certain things that men are doing more dangerous jobs. Maybe they're working more overtime. They're working more hours because some women are choosing to stay home and raise, have kids and raise kids and everything else. So that might or will impact things. Look at the WNBA. There's this big call for, well, they should be paid as much as the male basketball players in the NBA. Well, no, wait a minute. Look at how much money's in the pot.
I was going to say, do they bring in the same revenue though? Yeah.
No, I saw the, I forget which team. I couldn't name a WNBA team or whatever, but I saw the parade, a video of the victory parade going down whatever street in Chicago or whatever team won. And there was like 18 people there or whatever. And sorry, but that's not enough to pay big salaries. That's why it all comes down to it. Same with male soccer players and stuff like that. Yep. So you had, the women's soccer team making issues about that. Yeah, but you have to look at, okay, corporate sponsors, how much money's coming through the gates, seat sales and everything else. And, I hate to say it, but if they want to be paid more money, bring more money into the WNBA,
well, to me, that would be actually equality. To me, that would be fairness, right? Yeah. Which is fairness is that, if you're bringing in the same crowds that another sport is bringing in, then yes, then you have an argument that we should be paid because we're bringing the same amount of revenue or value out. But we cannot help, in my mind, I'm like, you cannot stop people from liking certain things and not liking other things. I think that politics has gone way too far to this idea where policies, like, for example, you have men who are transitioning, or they're men who are saying they're women, and now they're competing in women's sports and they're breaking records. And we have a mainstream media who's glorifying this. Look how brave she is. Personally, I think it's cowardly. I'm like, you're a man, right? Maybe you have transitioned, maybe you're transitioning or something. That's fine. But when it comes to your biology, you are a man.
Yeah.
And you're competing against women. There was a male boxer. She's a woman or a MMA fighter who broke a woman's skull. And people were calling her brave, and look how many records she's breaking. Personally, I think this is a signal of a sign of an insane population.
Well, I don't have a daughter; I have a son. But if I have a stepdaughter, so we'll use her for example. When she's in that age, when she's playing, let's say, sports in university or something like that, and suddenly she's going up against, a dude who last week decided that he's a chick girl, or whatever, and then all of a sudden he's like twice as big, and like, that's not. I don't think that's really cool. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that either, but nowadays things have gotten so crazy that if you say something like that, you're shunned or canceled or whatever. Like, I don't think people should be discriminated against. If it's someone that's transgender, whatever, they should have the same protections, and the law should protect them or whatever. But when it comes to sporting events and things like that, we can do a whole chat about that. But I'm not, I saw there was some people in the States, a woman that lost her scholarship or place on the track team because person transitioning ended up coming in and was basically blowing past everybody with it. There's a lot of women losing opportunities right now because of that. So it's an awkward place for feminists because they're like, well, wait a minute, what side are we on here? It's like they have to check the social justice card. Let's work it out here. Where am I going to be? We've gone away from where we can have just debates, civilized debates about things or whatever. You get paid into where you have to be on this side for every single issue or this side for every single issue. You and I talked about it with COVID stuff before and things like, you have to be pro-vax, pro-lockdown, pro-restriction, pro-vax passport, or anti-vax, anti-lockdown, anti-restrictions, anti-passport, or whatever. But there could be a lot of people might say, well, you know what, I'm pro-vaccine, but I'm actually against all the stuff like the lockdowns and the vaccine mandates and stuff, which actually where I fall in. I'm vaccinated, but I'm against all that stuff in all honesty. But people try to paint me into a corner because like, well, wait a minute, which side are you on? You got to be 100% one way, 100% the other. I'm like, well, no, I don't have to be.
Well, I saw this in the world of politics, and it's all political strategy is what I've learned, right? And I was like, this is all political strategy, really meant to have us fighting each other and feeling like a divided population. And the idea of it being so black and white, like, oh, you're, I had someone say to me, one of our soldiers inside of the Seymour Retention Army, that said, I would never work with him because he's part of a political party who doesn't believe in climate change, right? And I was like, well, first of all, you've never had that question. You've never actually asked me whether I believe in climate change or not. You're assuming that I have a certain belief system because of different other beliefs that I have about COVID and about the whole situation that we're living in. And I recognize that this is a political rhetoric that makes people, as you said, it pigeonholes people. But the reality is I'm very gray in a lot of the things that I say, because I recognize for myself, life isn't black and white. And while there may be a certain principle I stand by, like freedom, I stand by the principle of freedom and personal responsibility. I understand that there is always a degree to that. There is always a need for some kind of system of control or regulation that helps society function. And I take it from, the idea Napoleon Hill presented in his book, Think and Grow Rich, of organized effort. That I'm like, ultimately, if you have no government system or you have no system of administration, then many of our entrepreneurial opportunities would be lost, right? Like people are like, are you against or for social media? And I'm like, well, like anything, I was like, I use social media to grow my business. So on one hand, I'm very much for social media and the opportunity it's brought. At the other hand, I also see the need to regulate it in someone's life and to not make sure that social media doesn't become an all-consuming, activity or basically substance in someone's life.
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with social media, so
Me too,
get a lot of business from it. However, now the public square is gone online. It's no longer, the town square or newspaper columns or whatever. And when you get a couple big tech companies that could silence anyone, because
including presidents.
Yeah, presidents as well. But then you see the other side can say some pretty awful things and not get touched, right? With it, then you start to say, okay, this doesn't pass the smell test. Probably not. So then I'm in a position where normally I'm for less government regulation, but I'm like, geez, do these things have to be regulated some? But that makes me nervous because government tends to screw up most of the stuff it regulates or gets involved in. So, but there has to be some sort of, like you said, controls or be Lord of the Flies, right, that are out there. And so social media, I ran years ago. And so I was interested in you running because I ran for a party nomination back in 1997. And that was a much different time. I was literally just old enough to vote. I was 19 at the time.
Wow.
And so I think I would have been the youngest candidate elected if I would have won. But it was before social media and stuff like that. If I had done that now, and I looked about 14 or 13 at the time, I looked like a little pissant, right? I would have been creamed on like social media, like who's this, kid and all this other stuff, and they say your frontal lobe doesn't develop till your brain till you're 25 or something. So it would have been a lot coming at me at that age or whatever. I saw your video. I went down one day and I saw, some candidate confronted the education minister or whatever. And I'm like, oh, let's see what's going on here. I'll get the popcorn out.
Yeah.
And oh, that's Nick.
You're like, I know that guy. Yeah.
And then I'm eating. I'm like, ooh, he's crazy. I'm like, oh, no, wait, he's my friend. No, I'm just joking. No, I'm like, swing at him. Get him.
Well, I see, it's really interesting. After there was that confrontation between myself and the education minister, Dominic Carty, in the street here. And I was with Maxime Bernier, the leader of the PPC and such. And there was I like to call it a heated discussion about human rights. And it was really interesting to see the responses of people, of how some people really, truthfully, it was one of the reasons even the crooked CBC had to admit that video brought the PPC a lot of attention, and it brought the campaign that we ran here a lot of attention. So in a way, it really helped us get our message out there. But it was really interesting to see how some people were like, yes, stand up, fight back, this type of thing. But then there was other people who were trying to he should be arrested. That was assault. And I thought, quite honestly, I thought, I'm like, you pussy, you want me to be arrested? I didn't even take a swing at the guy. I barely, we had a heated discussion. Yeah. He's a politician. I'm a politician. Yeah. There was no way this was an assault or anything like that. In no way is Dominic Carty a victim in this. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was there to stir up shit, and he did, and he got what he wanted, and great. So I was like, but it's so amazing how people are so what I call essentially just they're just so weak and oh, this is assault and he should be arrested, and I cannot believe this is happening in the streets. And it's where do you live? You've never seen two guys, argue before? Yeah. I'm not saying I'm condoning the behavior, and I'm not saying I couldn't have handled myself better. Definitely I've learned, and I will continue to grow, and I've made mistakes. But at the same time, I couldn't believe kind of just the reaction to some of the men around that were like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, they're yelling at each other in the street. Relax.
You're dealing with important issues. People are going to get heated. A couple of years ago, Maxine Waters, when Trump was in power, was saying we have to confront anyone, as a Trump supporter, whether it's at restaurants, gas stations, we got to get in their face and, all this other stuff. Now that her side's in power, it's, oh, no, you can't do that, or whatever. And it's very hypocritical. But there's hypocrites on both sides. I've really soured on politics. As much as I love politics and stuff like that, I'm a political science major from back in my university days. It's a rough game, but anyone getting into it should be prepared for it. But that was happening a couple of years ago. There was a trend with people wearing mega hats, getting pop dumped on, or soda dumped on their heads, and people get things being thrown at them and stuff, which I found dangerous. Like, geez, that could be acid or anything, with it. So I don't, it's not like you were throwing anything at them or throwing punches or anything like that. It's a heated debate or whatever, and move on, people. It's not, the end of the world, Yeah, I think you want passionate people running for politics, they should be.
That's what I said. I'm like, I have no regrets. I said, look, what the media again doesn't say for all and this is again going back to the idea of putting yourself out there, taking risk, and being willing to take the blowback. The media wrote all these articles basically saying that making Dominic Carty to look like a victim. He was assaulted by the PPC candidate and the members, and it was all just designed to make us look bad. And what they don't say, one thing is they never called me for my side of the story. That was the first thing. It was no one from the media reached out and said, can you explain your side of the story? What happened? Secondly, the spin on it was that we somehow went to him and attacked him when he came to our rally. We had a meet and greet with Maxim, and this guy's he's first of all provincial politics. We're a federal party, right? We had no, like, we were meeting some of our supporters there, and he came walking down the street, turned around, and then started confronting Maxim about, his politics and such. And that's how it started. So it's really interesting. And I guess the point is, like, not to take things so superficially. I think we live in an age of clickbait, of memes and headlines, and people are chalking up their entire worldview to what a Facebook meme said, or a 2-minute article that they didn't even read. Some headline says, something, and people sum up an entire person, or they create a worldview based upon that. And I think, again, it's just a sign that that we've almost dumbed down as a population. Nobody's really thinking anymore, or no one's having good philosophical discussion. One of the reasons that why I wanted to do this podcast was just to have good discussion and show that that's where you actually gain a lot of knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I'm working on, we chatted about this before, for 2022 is social media can be used for a business. And, I've, like I said, made a lot of money from it and stuff, but I don't want to get sucked into that rabbit hole and be on there 24/7, fighting with people and stuff like that. So I'm getting much better at going on, doing what I have to do, and then get the heck out of there. I call it drive-by posting. I get on, I post, and I'm squealing out of there, before I can get dragged into it.
I call it post and go. That's my personal philosophy of social media.
Yeah.
Post and go. So I make a post, and now I'm actually using a program called Loomly.
Yeah.
Where most of my content is scheduled out, at least a few weeks in advance. And 90% of my time is spent on this program when I'm talking about social media content, not my overall time, but when I'm talking about creating social media content, 90% of the time is on a scheduling software. So I'm never actually on the platform itself. I only go on the platform to answer messages and such, and answer back. And I have another policy of social media, personal policy, that I follow, which is I'll only answer back once to haters or to critics. So, they may say something, I'll answer back once, but I don't continue the conversation. I just say something. Sometimes it's cheeky, depending on my mood. Sometimes I give, or I try to frame it in a way that, I'm like, again, like the idea of I'll present my case, my side, and then I move on. And I've made it a personal policy not to get sucked down these rabbit holes, because they're big time wasters. And, I think for many men right now, they are wasting so much time in their life. Like, so much time is being wasted to unproductive activities. I know from you, because I've, I remember when you were building back in the real estate, I shared an office with you. We spend a lot of time together, and I know that you're a productive guy. Like, I'm like, holy smoke, this guy, like, when he's like focused, I mean, he's getting things done. He's using his time wisely. Is there some, techniques or routines that you do that make you so productive?
Well, one of the things which really helps is the do not disturb option on an iPhone. Swipe down, click do not disturb. Which some people might say, oh, that's simplistic or whatever. Those phones, I love smartphones. I love what they can do, but I've heard that every distraction can take you 21 minutes to get back into flow when you're doing it. So I've taken it a step further. When I'm working, when I know that I have to get something done, I'm actually putting my phone in another room. My brother, love my brother, and my brother best friend and I are in a group chat. I'll wake up in the morning, there's 88 notifications in that thing. I said, you guys are like two little old ladies going back and forth here. I said, you're not going to hear from me as much. But I like having my phone in a different room, because even if it's a turn over on your desk next to you, it's still occupying some mental space. You're wondering, like, oh gee, I wonder, did anyone text me, or something going on. Someone we're like little like a casino, right? We want that hit of dopamine when we get the notification someone liked our post or shared it or did something like that. So we could have a whole talk about that. But I see men who are just attached to their phones. They can't go to the washroom, without their phone right in there, and they're on Facebook on the toilet while they're having a dump, right? It's like, hey, maybe you can wait 5 minutes. Kind of gross thinking of the screen too when you're at it.
Totally. The whole thing is just like weird to me. Yeah.
I don't get it either. This episode brought to you by Whoosh, screen cleaner. I don't use my phone on the toilet, folks, but phones can get a little bit, dirty and stuff like that. So if you use promo code Nick, you will get it. And it comes with a little, rag there too. So, and it also comes with a little one there. So nice. Once a day I clean my screen. Yeah, but it literally, like, people who are panicking when if they leave their phone at home for like 5 minute drive down to the store or whatever to come back, and that's pretty scary. So there's a great book I just finished reading called Indistractable, which your people may want to check out, because that's what it's all about, is to make yourself indistractable. Nir Eyal, I think, is the author. I don't know if I pronounced his name right, but it's got some great quick strategies that you can use to be more productive. So I recommend checking that one out.
I think something you said there really, really, I kind of just want to highlight is that you talked about your mental space. I think a lot of people think of production or being productive as like a time thing, a time management. And of course, there's an aspect of that. But I prefer, what really helped me as far as being productive was making sure that my mental space was is protected. And, Tim Ferriss in his book 4 Hour Work Week, which is an older book, and I don't buy it even after reading the book. While I did pick up a lot of, I think his train of thought is interesting, and he presents some really interesting things. I don't buy into a 4 hour work week. I don't know any successful. I've never met a successful person that's like, oh yeah, I work 4 hours a week, and I'm just and here's my Lamborghini, and here's my I'm like no, like someone who works 4 hours a week has a compensation of 4 hours per week, right? And it's like. Yeah. So while I don't buy into that, I liked one thing that he highlighted, which was that, it's about protecting yourself from useless information. And that's something that I've really learned is like, there's so much information available today, but most of it is useless to where you want to go. And I think the idea of men having goals, like, this is what I'm looking to do. Like you talked about, okay, 2022, here's my goals. Here are the goals I've set out for myself for the next 3 months or 6 months or for the year. And making sure that if it has nothing to do with your goal, why are you there? But I think that there's this, what they call FOMO, fear of missing out, And do you ever have that kind of fear of missing out, or maybe I'm missing opportunities for not being as plugged in as many other people are?
It's gotten easier, but it's definitely there, in the background. Right. This has been a couple-year process for me to detach myself from smartphones, social media and stuff, or as much as I can. So it has gotten easier, but early on, like, I would have the shakes. I'm like, where's my phone? I need to check,
like withdrawals. Where's my phone? Where's my phone?
Or like back in my real estate days, have you heard the term phantom vibrations? It's when your phone's ring. Like back in my real estate days, I get hundreds of calls a day. So this was, I would often think my phone was buzzing, in my pocket or whatever, when it wasn't. It's just like this reaction or whatever. I remember back in those days, I worked, well over 100 hours a week. And there'd be days that I'd be a holiday, for example, or something like that, where the phone wouldn't be ringing as much as normal, like on Christmas Day. And I was getting antsy, or I'd put the phone in the drawer back then, and I'm like, I could hear it calling me. I'd be, reading a book or whatever. It's like, Mark, and I'm like, what the heck? It's calling me out here. That was years ago. So I am getting better now. It feels so good that once you get used to it, to just not have your phone on you all the time. I would much rather spend time reading a good book than the screen. Like the news feed, that's junk food for your brain. Like that's not really giving you much. Or the people posting on there are regurgitating things like you mentioned, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. They're just taking something they've read in Think and Grow Rich, and then they're posting on Facebook like, it's something that's there's this one guy, I won't say who it is. in my space who some people gush about, and I look at his stuff, and he talks about productivity and different things like that, and he's dropping f-bombs, so it's like fuck this and pussy that and you're all this stuff, and everyone's like, oh, he's so edgy or whatever. I got looking at his stuff, and it's exact same things like from all Brian Tracy's books, but he's just dressing it up with some naughty words like potty mouth, and everyone's like, oh my god, he's so cool, or whatever. And I'm like, no, that's Brian Tracy stuff, just bit of lipstick on the pig, I guess, with it. But that's what social media usually is, regurgitated ideas. I would much rather read a good book. So the last couple of years, I've set a goal to read 100 books a year. Now that includes audiobooks as well. So that's
listening. Like considered, I listen to a book as I've consumed
that would consider. Although I do read a lot of hard copy books, I prefer to read than that. But if I'm on the road, I'm at the grocery store, I'm, on the highway, whatever, I'm listening to an audiobook, and I listen at 2x speed. Which is something at first I was like, a client mentioned it to me, like, Mark, you should listen at 2x speed. I'm like, no, it's going to sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks, right?
Yeah.
So the first little bit took a little getting used to. Now I can't listen at 1x speed, because if it's 1x speed, it sounds like this to me. I'm like, hurry up, let's go. Unless it's a fast narrator, then I might go to 1.5x, but usually I'm at 2x speed. But yeah, so like this year in 2021, I actually was closer to 90 books a year. Before I was like 102 or something. Because one thing I did say last year is it's not a race. Some books were bigger books, or I want to digest them a little bit more. But I would much rather read a book, than spend time on social media. And I think men would be better served doing that.
Yeah, Marcus Aurelius in his book Meditations has a quote specifically about books that says, never be satisfied with superficial understanding of a book. And I think in today's world, we could say never be satisfied with superficial understanding of a subject. And unfortunately, social media is that. It's a superficial understanding of something that people are chalking up as full knowledge, or making opinions or making decisions, sometimes big life decisions or directions based upon very superficial knowledge. And I find that if somebody isn't willing to dive deep into their craft and really learn their craft, then they're also their content, the results that they can produce for themselves and others are also superficial. It's just a lot of hype. And I think we've generally bought into a world of hype. And but again, I've met a lot of successful people, including yourself, that are super successful, that are doing well, and they're not like that. And that's one thing I noticed. It's like, the most successful people that I've met are not like the majority of people. They're not superficial in like they understand their craft. They've got a growth mindset. They're disciplined. They're focused. And they're getting things done. And they're very kind of like in a way, they're very strong-willed, and they're moving forward towards their goals. But I find that when I meet the majority of people that I don't, necessarily consider successful or somebody that I necessarily inspired by, I recognize that they are generally more superficial. They know a little bit about a lot, but not a lot about a few things. So they could talk about many, many things, but only at a very surface level. And as soon as you start to ask questions or dive a little bit deeper into the subject, then everything becomes hazy, and then they move on because they don't really have depth of knowledge.
Well, I know Ben Settle had talked about that. He had said somewhere in his emails, or maybe it was his newsletter, I read it, he could tell who spends a lot of time on Facebook, because they're just regurgitating talking points. They all have the same, opinions, everything else. Actually, for people who don't enjoy reading, this is a great book. Robert Greene, who wrote Mastery, wrote several great books.
The Art of
48 Laws of Power.
48 Laws, yeah.
Yeah, and all those. Robert Greene has this book is daily meditate. Like Daily Laws is just one quick passage a day. It's one page. You can finish it in literally a minute or whatever. So I don't buy the excuse when people say, "Well, I don't like reading," or something like that. Like I think you could do that in 2 minutes a day. That's how I start every day. I read this Daily Laws for the day, and it gets my day off to a good start.
Sometimes I tell this to my own clients that I'm working with, or people working with me in my coaching programs, etc. They're like, "Oh, well, I don't really like to do that." And I'm like, "Do you like the result?"
Yeah.
Right. I was like, there's some things in this world that you're just not going to like doing, but you like the result it produces, right? I remember Muhammad Ali saying, I hate training, but I love being a world champion.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's that idea of sacrifice, or we're all going to suffer, or we're all going to have pains or things that we don't like. But do you like the result? And can you see the long-term benefit? If I don't like working out, but I aspire to have, a physique, right? It's like, well, if that's what you aspire to, then you have to work out. And you say, well, I don't like working out. But what you will like is when you start getting the results. And then essentially you'll start like working out, because what a lot of people don't realize too is that liking something or disliking something is often a conditioning more than a real preference.
Yeah.
It's more that you grew up not reading, so you don't like reading. You were never encouraged to do it.
Yeah. Well, there's no better feeling. And like, I don't want to brag, but every day when I go to the mirror, I lift up my shirt and I see my six pack. I'm like,
yeah. Let's see it.
I don't think it's appropriate. I don't want to show you after or whatever. It's a 2-pack right now. So, I do have an elliptical here in my. There we go. I try to do the elliptical every day, but I'm not Mr. Fitness or anything like that. But there's another great place to listen to audiobooks. I finish a lot of the books and podcasts doing the elliptical or whatever. So yeah, it's all about making choices, and it's tough because there's so much coming at you. Like, I thought things were noisy in 2014 when I jumped online. Now in 2022, it's like 5-10 times noisier. I'm like, holy geez. And I've seen studies showing the human attention spans now less than is it a goldfish or one of the fish?
I think 7 seconds.
Yeah, and it's going down like even more probably every year. Why wouldn't it be going down? Because we're getting just killed by all these different distractions and stuff. I'm like, one of the things I like to do, and this sounds funny too, talk about reading. You saw my Stan Lee little figure. Sometimes to turn my brain off, my business brain off, I'll read a comic book at night. Some people are like, oh, well, gee, what's this entrepreneur, busy entrepreneur? I'm like right now I have The Walking Dead, volume 1, black and white type thing. I like the TV show. I might read a few pages of that, just to relax before bed, about a zombie apocalypse and people getting killed and stuff, but it's good to turn your brain off, and you get different ideas too for content, other stuff. I don't like just reading self-help books and only doing that, like mixing it up a little bit too, because I get some great ideas from other stuff as well.
Well, I think it's what makes everything unique too. Like, we all have, let's say our main focus is our business or whatever we're focused on, but if you pull in some of your hobbies, then all of a sudden it gives you like depth of character too. It makes you full. You can, use an analogy from The Walking Dead, for example, in your content, which makes your content different than opposed to someone, again, who's just regurgitating, oh, that quote got a lot of likes from them, I'm going to now use it on mine to hopefully get a lot of likes. And I find that while you might get a lot of likes and followers, I notice that there's a difference between followers and buyers. Whether there's somebody who's literally going to buy your program, your coaching, your service or your product, or buy into a philosophy or buy into you. I think there's a big difference between, like, again, superficial followers. Oh, that was a funny meme, to people who are serious, will actually take time to read your content, to take time to learn from you. They're the ones who are going to do business. They're the ones who are going to fork out money because they value what you're bringing to the table, as opposed to the superficial followers.
Got it. Is this edited, Nick, or no?
No.
No, it isn't. We'll keep it real. Just bear with me. My better half just had to ask a quick question. So.
Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to. I have another call coming up too there. So
yeah, sounds good. We're way over our time, anyways. But you're such an interesting guy.
Yeah, I know. I try. No, I appreciate you. Yeah, having me on. Lots of good stuff there, and I hope it's.
But just quickly before you go, just let everybody know what's the best way to get a hold of you, and I'll make sure I include all your links and everything below.
Got it. Best spot, naturalborncoaches.com. That's the main central hub. My Facebook group's thecoachingjungle.com. There's 22,000 coaches almost in there now. And secretcoachclub.com is my print newsletter.
Perfect. Marc, thank you for your time. Guys, I'm going to make sure all of Marc's links are included below, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.